All right. I'd like to call the March 18, 2024 City Council meeting to order at 7:05. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Annette Santiago is online, counselor, and everybody else is present. A chance to take a look at the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda tonight. Counselor Jacobs. Motion by Counselor Jacobs to accept the motion, to approve the motion, approve the agenda as written. Any seconds? Second by Council President Miller. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, still no other public comment. We do have one public comment, but Ed Freeman will speak when we talk about this electric supply on agenda number 5. So we will close public comment. And now we're looking at a consent agenda consisting of March 4, 2024 City Council meeting minutes and March 11, 2024 special City Council meeting minutes. Looking for someone to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Councilor Holmes makes a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any seconds? Second by Councilor LaFrenz. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to new business. South Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. Jack Massey, if you'd like to come up to a microphone. Just a reminder, everybody, we've had a few complaints about them not being able to hear online real well. So let's just make sure we really speak good into these microphones so they can all hear. Welcome.
Hello. How's this? Better?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me. This is my semi-annual report, coming every 6 months to check in with you guys, see how you're all doing. Good? Enjoying the sunshine, I hope.
One more day.
One more day. I know that's about how you're going to get. So I come to you this evening doing sort of a year in review with the chamber, looking back at 2023 and kind of sharing some of our successes and where we've come in this past year. We do a coffee and commerce and a happy hour every month. Those are our networking events. We try to move about the South Columbia County, which covers Columbia City, Scappoose, St. Helens, and Vernonia. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of activity in Vernonia, but we definitely try to get out here to Scappoose and celebrate the businesses here as well with ribbon cuttings as well. So over the course of this last year, we had 12 coffee and commerce events. We had 12 happy hour events. Our coffee and commerce, we had over 250 participants in total coming together in those events. And the 12 events that we had for our happy hour, we had over 450 participants. In several of those, we had over 50 people at one event, which is really exciting considering when I first started here back in October of 21, we were lucky to have like 15. So it's exciting to see them grow, and our members are reaching out to me and booking their events way in advance. So that's also very cool that they're trying to get on the books, and I'm having to say sometimes we're 6 months out. So that's a good thing. Ribbon cuttings, 13 of those last year, and really great attendance with those as well. Again, I just want to shout out to any of the council members. If there's a ribbon cutting in Scappoose, out in the Scappoose area, I am reaching out to, I guess it's Susan that I'm sending that to, and hoping that she's sharing that with you. We'd love to have you at our events as well, and just kind of support the businesses here in Scappoose area as well.
I get your emails as well. I appreciate those. What is your next event coming up?
Our next event is our annual banquet, our annual awards banquet. It's the celebration of excellence. The second year that we've done this since COVID broke free. We're very excited about it. In fact, I brought you a very nice flyer that kind of explains more about it. This is for you to keep here. It's this Saturday, and yes, we'd love to have you. I'm saving a table for you, by the way.
Be there.
There are different levels of sponsorship for the tables. We actually opened up a table of 4 if a business wanted to share another a table with another business of 8 because there's 8 per table. So that is an option. We really, really would love to have members of the Scappoose City Council there at this year's event. It is bringing glitz and glamour to South Columbia County. So Hollywood's coming to us. We're going to have paparazzi greeting our guests as they enter on the gold carpet, because anyone can do a red carpet, but why not a gold carpet, right? So we've got local media that's going to be meeting our guests and doing a quick little interview before they walk in, live streaming those on the Chamber Live website, or excuse me, the Chamber Facebook page. And Sierra Trask with Keep It Local will be out there as well, live streaming on Keep It Local and then tagging the Chamber as well. So businesses are getting the opportunity to share just a little bit about what they do. Nonprofits are being able to, get the word out there as to what kind of services they offer our community. Just kind of a fun little thing. We've got Cherry on Top, which is actually located here in Scappoose, an open photo booth where groups of people can get behind the photo and get their pictures taken, load them up. They load up online and they can collect their pictures free for our guests. We're doing a wine and whiskey wall. We're doing raffles. All this is like a fundraiser for the Chamber to support my position. And in turn, really is going to be paid back to our Chamber members in different programs and opportunities that will help me do my job more efficient and be able to do more outreach, be available at more events. Looking forward to coming to the Earth Day event that's going to be here at Heritage Park. I understand you're having a Scappoose outdoor event on July,
June
June
8th.
8th. Yes, I'll be here for that. If you're doing the movies by midnight again, love that. I'll be out here with that as well. So just enjoying some of those things, getting out and about, and I'll be able to do more of that with some extra funds to maybe get me an assistant or what have you. Last year, we did have our event in May, this banquet. 272 people attended. We raised $13,000. And if you recall at the last meeting, I spoke about where that $13,000 went. It did not go for an assistant to me, which it was supposed to, but that's okay. It went for a new furnace and air conditioning unit that we very much needed at the Chamber. We consistently have members in the community using our facility as a learning center, having private meetings, consultations, after hours, events. It's just a benefit that the Chamber members are allowed to use the building. So we want them to be comfortable no matter what temperature it is outside. They can now be comfortable inside. So we're just stepping some things up. We're getting a new merchant services card reader, so it's easier for me to be out and about and taking payments for membership, or in this case, like the banquet fees. We're getting a new Wi-Fi program that's through Batbeam. Are you guys familiar with that? It's not quite here in the Scappoose area yet, but it's going to be 3 times as fast as what we have available at the Chamber now, and just it's going to be our own dedicated line. So right now we're sharing with other businesses in the area. If we were to do like a Canva class example, everyone's getting their computers out, trying to do Wi-Fi on, everyone's connecting to our Wi-Fi, super slow, just drags. So that's exciting that we're going to have something that we can actually be able to have classroom presentations, people on Wi-Fi, and it's just our high speed located. So good things are happening. Looking forward to even better things in 2024. With this, I'm going to have a new program that's going to be more user-friendly for our members. You can go online and you can change, like if you have a staff change, you can put that new person in that position, whether they're marketing, billing, what have you. You can also put job postings on our new program. So you have looking to fill a position, you can put that on there how you want it to look. If you fill that position, you can go on and pull that off. We don't have that option now, nor do we have the option of you being able to just change whatever you want to say on your listing, which may not be so important for the city, but for our businesses, it's really helpful. They don't have to keep reaching out to me to make a simple change here or there. So that's just one of the things that I'm already planning to do with this year's fundraising benefits. Basically, I'm just here to say, really, I am saving a table for you.
I will be there.
It's awesome.
Try to email you to remind you, but I'll be there.
Are you already assigned with a table then?
Nothing.
Okay. So I did drop off a packet of information that gave you the different sponsorship levels. If you want me to resend something to you just specifically, Joe, I can do that.
I'll look for it. Go
Otherwise,
ahead and send it to me.
yeah. And so just need to contact me. There's nothing online because of the merchant services changeover that we're happening now. So just let me know what you're looking for as far as the table or tickets.
Okay.
And you got it.
See who else is available.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, so let me just say one last thing. I'm sharing the love this year. I'm having 4 different vendors providing all 4 courses of the meals. So the Klondike Tavern is going to be providing the appetizers. Village Inn will be offering the salad. Sunshine Pizza is going to be offering the meal, which is going to be chicken cordon bleu, your choice of chicken cordon bleu, or New York strip loin that's carved like a carving station. And then the buffet will have mashed potatoes, rice pilaf, corn, green beans, dinner rolls. And then St. Helens Tourism is donating all of the desserts. And I hear that it's going to be a beautiful display. So, well, there you go. Sounds good? I'm hungry.
I know, that's good.
Any questions that I can answer for you tonight?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
with the update.
Is there anything in the future that you'd like to hear from the chamber that I'm not hitting, by making points on?
Not on top of my head, but I'll find something for you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you for taking a few
Thank
minutes
you.
to talk with me.
Thank you.
Appreciate
I
it.
look forward to seeing you all on Saturday.
I'll make sure.
Can I make sure that you
Fly
guys
out
get
of
this?
the
as well?
country so I can come. Okay. We have GMP. They're going to be helping us with our search for city manager recruitment. And they have sent somebody here today. Would you be Bob Larson? All right, Bob. I'm Joe. Why don't you go ahead and give us your presentation. Welcome and thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the community. I'm Bob Larson with GMP Consultants. Here to answer questions, of course, but also here to talk about some vital information that we'd like to collect from the city, and also talk to you about the process for the recruitment. Start off with, I think you have or should have a copy of an agenda that we put together along with a, I'll call it a generic search schedule and then a client checklist. If you have that in front of you, you can follow along. I'll start with the first page, the introductions. Yeah, I'm Bob Larson. I've done 3 city manager, city administrator recruitments recently in the state of Oregon, Canby, Cottage Grove, and hopefully finishing up Shady Cove probably next week. And I've also done the finance director search with St. Helens, John up there. Had a great time, and I've got also a bit more experience in the states of Utah and one in Colorado as well as Washington State. So I've been with Greg Prothman's GMP with about a little over 2 years, and really enjoy this. So delighted you placed your trust and confidence in us. We're going to do a great job for you folks, and I want to make sure that you feel assured about that. Along with me, the primary contact we'll have is Brenda Gavitas. She's our administrative lead. She's not able to attend tonight. She sends her apologies. She'll also be a key member here as we go along. The first thing I want to ask about is the city of Scappoose. We need a key city contact. And I know we've got Larry, and if you want to have Larry designate anyone else, it's primarily for as a liaison for coordination, but also for correspondence, making sure that the mayor and council are getting key information. I'll be sending it directly, but I also want to make sure we have one key contact and you're on one key contact on our end. It makes it a little bit easier for coordination purposes. We can certainly take care of that business later if you don't have someone. If it sounds like Larry's already got that handled, so.
Okay.
Next on the item agenda is a recruitment schedule. This is a second page of the information you received from us. Yeah, tonight obviously is a kickoff meeting. This can be revised a little bit. I was just looking over the notes I had today and some of the information I've received already. I want to skip down to a little bit just to reflect on this. We've got a significant amount of the information that was submitted to us via the mayor and council, thanks to Marissa Jacobs, I understand, one of your council members put that together. I was very impressed with that. Thank you. That's going to help us considerably with the profile development, data collection. But along with that, we can certainly adjust this calendar. We want to obviously tighten it up a little bit if we can, get the profile development done within the next week or so. I think we can pull that off. Invariably, it'll take a little bit of time to get that done. You have to certainly look at it to approve it. The approval process for that profile is generally comes directly from the mayor and council. Now, you can certainly take a look at that if you want to delegate that to Larry to work with you folks. So if you see it, but I prefer, it doesn't need a formal approval, but it certainly obviously needs your consensus on it before we want to start the recruitment process to launch a search.
I do have a question for you, Bob. Thank you so much for coming out and nice to meet you. So glad that the materials made it your way. And looking at the timeline, and given what our time constraints are with our interim city manager, we're absolutely looking to try to expedite where we can go fast. So I'm curious with respect to this first milestone, the profile development, given the information that you have, would it be possible for us to be able to get this finalized by the end of this week so that we can move a little bit more efficiently and get the job posted by the beginning of next week?
I promise to guarantee that, but I can tell you this much. There's a couple other key issues here, and maybe this will help in informing you as to how we can do this. The, we got the key issues, obviously. We've got the profile checklist, which is attached, which is the city's responsibility. Yeah, about where I'm at here. Oh, item 4, the interviews with the city council and department heads. Now, that typically has been used for profile development. I ask a series of questions, you folks respond. It's the stuff that you've already put in, Councilmember Jacobs, into the
Mhm.
information you've already given us, the substantial amount of it, actually. Now, council mayor still would like to talk to me about your own thoughts and ideas. We can certainly do that. It'll take a little bit of time to do that, but we can certainly dispense with that.
I think if you feel you have enough information there on my part, I was fine. We were able to see that and input. So if there was more information you felt you needed, but I was happy on my end.
Certainly propose this. If I need more information, I can certainly get a hold of you folks. But right now, as I've looked at it today, it looks like we've got it covered. But, it might take a little bit of time. I would think we could get this done in, say, 1 week. So maybe sometime early next week. We've got a little bit of a log jam with some other recruitments, and we've got one key person who does our graphics and profile development and drafting. Sarah is, and she's a little bit busy right now, but we'll certainly do our best. If I can get that to her tomorrow, if she already has the information and we can get started on it, I think we can pull that off.
Right.
To Larry, we'll do our best to do that.
Be great.
That'll tighten it up quite a bit, actually. Yeah, and then we could be certainly in the profile approval by maybe end of next week, by end of March, perhaps. And we could certainly get this thing launched in early April.
If you send us profile development and the profile approval, or send us the profile development, I can send that out to the city council immediately.
Right.
And then to have them a couple of days, a day or so, just to respond. And I can send you their comments.
Absolutely, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, the piece of that is of course, the city's checklist, and most of this, it's pretty straightforward.
We'll get that
to us.
We
Yes.
part of the next day.
Only other piece I want to just mention that if there has not been a salary survey done recently, comfortable with the salary you've got, we can certainly work with that. But I just want to caution that it's fairly competitive out there right now. We want to make sure that this position is competitive also out there in the market. Only cause I have right now for concern at the moment. I'm not sure if you've done a recent salary survey that would take a look at the city manager's salary.
It was on the high side.
So, well, go ahead, Counselor Holmes.
Yeah, my understanding is we may have already been a bit on the high side in terms of full salary and benefits package. Have you seen the numbers and you're feeling that they might not be competitive?
As I mentioned to Larry on the phone today, I don't want to speculate without knowing if the survey hasn't been done recently. I can assure you that we've done a few others for Deep Cottage Grove and others like that, but that's a little bit different. It's a little bit different geographically, a little larger city. Excuse me, it's about the same size, actually. I'm thinking it can be. We can certainly take a look at that. I know your benefits here are outstanding. That I know because I've compared to other cities. That's not the issue. It's more about can the salary be competitive enough to attract we really want to be as a strong field.
Did that around 6 months ago when
Yeah.
we looked at Alex's.
I thought we did. We were reviewing our city manager at the time, and I thought we did
You did.
when we were looking at it. So we might have some updated numbers, or did you put those in the
That was.
profile?
Did see the salary range, and it's I think the mid 140s. Top was like $12,000 a month, I believe.
Right. Can we just add that to the checklist? City Manager Larry, just to do a double check on the cap. Our currently cap
It's
is,
item 6 on that list, so.
Job salary range.
I think we're, I do believe that we're good with respect to not needing to do a salary survey.
We did have, obviously, we have our annual town meeting coming up April 6th. Are you able to use that in any way to reach out with citizens? I know hopefully the job will be out there posted by then, but you can still get an idea of what we're looking for in ways of an interview type.
Absolutely. My idea would be to discuss the recruitment process that day. One of my colleagues, Richard Myers, he's the former city manager of Cottage Grove. He retired recently. He's also learning this business and he's delighted, but he'll be here as well, assisting me and shadowing. He's brand new to this. So we'll be here on April 6th. We're going to talk about the recruitment process, answer any questions, but also seek the community members' insights and ideas about the ideal candidate traits. Now, the profile most likely will be done. We'll start the recruitment, but it'll help inform us as we're looking at candidates as well when they're coming in. So that'll help considerably having them have the opportunity. And I really applaud you folks for doing this, frankly. It really makes a big difference having community members more.
We're going to market that as well to get people out for that purpose alone. Okay.
On my calendar, I've already scheduled.
Right.
With that, we generally, if you want to ask any other questions about this schedule, it'll obviously change a little bit there, but launch one of these first weeks here. We'll push that out to the GMP website and the network. We'll submit online ads, send direct mailings. The direct mailings, I believe, go to numbers here. Apologize.
While you're looking for that, just real quick, I Googled what Matter City Managers pay is because they are comparable in population, not necessarily in other dynamics though. And they're starting as $130,613 to $179,216. And that was, and it looks like August 6, 2023, approximately.
That's the problem. We get compared a lot to Hillsborough, Beaverton, areas right here. Yeah.
We are not.
We're more competitive with the Statons and the Madrases and Malalas.
Yeah, just mentioning the target audience, really jumped down to recruitment strategy, which is part of that. We'll be sending this to the 14 Western states. We'll also be looking obviously into the Midwest. We're going to put it on the International City Management Association website. Now that's a international, but it's also like a national publication. So it might attract a few others from distances out. For instance, in Cottage Grove, we had a couple candidates that were, one was from Florida, another was from North Carolina. Possibility. Yeah, the other piece is targeting city managers and city administrators in similar sized communities. This is a larger city compared to some other cities in Oregon, so it would be attractive to those folks who are perhaps from a smaller city who's got some good experience. Also be targeting well-qualified department heads, as well as deputies and assistants in cities that obviously have a good amount of experience. I did read the job description, and it's quite clear in there what you're expecting. Target that as well.
And I keep hearing about Indeed.com. You ever use that or work through them at all or anything like that?
Yeah, we use our LinkedIn. Yeah, we find a lot of folks that come through there. You can try other avenues. Sometimes they get a little bit more expensive than what we'd like to see for the client. You can certainly take a look at those. We aren't closed to any other avenues, but we'll do the best we can to make sure that he gets to the right audience.
What about just your networking? So I understand like all the various job boards that are out there, but
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what your actual in-house networking
Sure.
looks like?
My colleagues, there's now 12 of us, primarily they're former police chiefs or fire chiefs, finance directors, city managers, of course. All got extensive networks. We're going to obviously push it out. see each other's work. We see each other when we've got it on the listings. We see each other's searches. We see each other's applicants. We'll look at those. We also put it out to the League of Oregon Cities, the Association of Washington Cities, the California Cities group, the Arizona. Put out in job boards for city managers, for regional as well as the national. We'll also put it out to other publications that are affiliates. For instance, I got a tip, not tip, suggestion from my colleagues, City of Canby, and we traced that when it was a for deputy up in the state of Washington. She was very interested. She unfortunately she took the job in Wood River County just before we were able to run at get Canby. These types of
How many applicants for Canby and Cottage Grove roughly did you get?
Canby and Cottage Grove are both 24, 25 plus. Of those well qualified was maybe a third. Interviewing about 6 to 7 city. Less than that actually, but yeah, the hoping to tough market as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, but this is Scappoose.
We want to make sure we're finding good, well qualified people. We have to. We'll just continue the search. But that's some good luck here in the state of Oregon. So I'm very confident that we'll find good candidates for this particular position as well. Apologize, I've been jumping over the agenda here. At the target audience, I mentioned the advertisements that'll be going out. We also send direct mailings to the city managers and city administrators that I mentioned earlier, as well as the deputies and department heads for those cities. We send 600 to 800 of those. They're individuals. They're actually mailers that we do. And we find that we get pretty good success on that as well. There's a folks will look at it, they'll set it down, they'll have it for a few days, and they'll start thinking about it. I also do, for instance, next week we're going to be Washington and Oregon city managers out at Seaside. They've got their Northwest regional. We'll be hitting that very hard. A few managers from states there, as well as departments and assistants, and some private recruiting as well. We don't focus on any particular individual. We're looking for folks who are interested in a move. This would be a great move for someone. That covers most of the items I wanted to talk about. Is there any other questions or are you missing anything?
Probably on here, but when you do post, how long is that posting job opening before you would close it typically?
We do try to do 4 weekends, if 30 days or better. So it's called the first review. We don't really close it until we've got the applicants or number of candidates we want, but it's a minimum of 30 days. We'll try to do that so we can cover technology. I want to say city managers are procrastinators, but for that particular group of candidates, it usually takes second or in the last week or second last weekend. If we find that there's hasn't happened yet for my searches, but if we find we're not getting the good quality candidates we'd like to see, I'd extend it a little bit. Necessary here.
That's all I had.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just if I may add, just keep, please keep the line of communication open with Larry. If you are finding things that are obstacles within our profile, please elevate that to Larry so that we can quickly make a decision and pivot if necessary.
Absolutely, we'll do that. I just want to confirm then, correspondence to the mayor and council, would you prefer that I send it to Larry, he redistributes it, or how would you like that to happen? Because really make the direct line of communication a little bit awkward sometimes because you've got 5 or 6 or 7 members of council. They're not necessarily all receiving information at the same time. Larry's a little bit different as far as his coordination ability with you folks being a direct line and seeing you regularly, but do either one.
Larry for sure, but what about one other, maybe Susan or me, one of us, because in case you're not here and we don't want it to maybe wait 3 days to get out, that she could then forward it on to us.
I could copy to the, the mayor and or the mayor, the president of the council or the vice mayor, whatever you like to do.
I think probably the staff goes to myself and Susan will give you hers. And it would hurt to have the mayor on the list too.
Yeah. That's fine. Using me and Larry. Jeanette, did you still have a question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Susan's information.
And whatever you need for April 6th, ways of tables or boards or information, we'll be there to help too.
Definitely.
Great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Good luck. Approve the agenda. Skip. Okay, and up to number 4, Dutch Canyon Well number 3, Public Works Director Dave Sukout and
Yeah,
Contract Administrator Charlotte Baker.
Mayor and Council, good evening. So Charlotte took the lead on this project as far as the RFP, so I'm gonna hand it over to her to run through. And then when we get to the end, if you got any technical questions, happy to answer. Will you, Charlotte?
So hi, I'm online tonight. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So this is contract authorization for contract number 2024-02 for the DC Well number 3 construction project. This is the third contract related to this project, the third and final. The initial contract was for the design, and then the second contract was for the actual well drilling, which began last summer. And then this is for the final construction services. We opened the bid in February. Bid closed March 6th. We got a bid from Peak Electric Group. That was within our budget, and staff felt confident that Peak would be able to perform the work. So decided to move forward with Peak as opposed to putting the project out to bid again. The contract price is $293,931.91. And it'll be funded through our DAS ARPA funds. And staff recommends that council authorize City Manager Lehman to enter the city into a contract with Peak Electric Group to perform final construction work for DC Well 3.
Thank you, Charlotte. I might have missed it there, but on the quote, does that change much since then to now? Or do we have to have them we accepted them? Do we requote them to see if they've changed? Or is that price still set?
This is set, and it's only a week. They submitted this
Oh,
on
it
the
was just
6th of
recently.
March.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we just received this, gave them the notice of intent.
Yeah.
And come to this stage, we'll sign the contracts hopefully this week. And
Yeah.
we'll get our kickoff meeting and going and.
And everything is
sending him
within the
contract
time
with that
frame.
figure. Yeah.
Time frame is all good for ARPA dollars and expect to finish this.
Yeah, so the project completion is June of this summer, so we don't have a lot of time to mess around. We pre-procured the pump already a month and a half ago or so. So that's on its way. There's one portion talking with Peak that's got a little bit of a lead time. It's called the pitless adapter. It welds to the top of the well shaft, but we feel confident we can get that. So looking at the numbers, this is on par with what we paid in the past. So yeah, we feel comfortable. Plus, we really don't want to go back to the drawing board anyways, because I don't know we'd get any more bidders and then we would waste our time and miss our funding opportunity here. So we'd encourage you to move forward.
And if this goes well, it should be up and running later in the summer then by end of
It
somewhere.
has to be operational by June of this year, the ARPA criteria.
Okay. Do we have any motions? Anybody? I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion that City Council authorize City Manager Lehman to enter the city into a contract with the Peak Electric Group to perform final construction work for Dutch Canyon Well number 3.
I have a motion by Councilor Holmes to move council authorize City Manager Lehman to enter the city into a contract with Peak Electric Group to perform final construction work for Dutch Canyon Well number 3. Any seconds?
Second.
Councilor Jacobs seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks, Charlotte.
Your Honor, if I could,
Yes.
everybody thinks Dave does a great job, and he does okay.
All
Charlotte is a star,
right.
and he truly is, she's relatively new to the city. How long, Dave, Charlotte?
Here.
How long have you been with us?
10 months. Yeah.
She truly is doing an outstanding job, so good to have you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Charlotte. Really appreciate it. Keep it up. Okay. Turn the lights off. We got somebody coming back to visit us today, it looks like. Electric supply issues, Columbia River PUD General Manager Michael Sykes. Brandon Staley here is along with you. Let Ed Freeman some questions and give a statement.
Well, first of all, thank you, Larry, for inviting us. This is, I think, a really important topic that we all need to be really very aware of and in unison to work towards solutions. We gave a similar presentation to the city of St. Helens about 3 weeks ago because they needed to understand the consequences of the Project Sprint. But anyway, I'm just going to, I think really, in order to take 2 steps forward, sometimes you got to take a step backwards. And I want to just give a little bit of overview of the BPA system and where we get our power so that you understand what we're challenged with. Because let me tell you, it's been said that there's been more change in the electric energy field in the last 5 years than there's been in the last 50 years. As all of you know, we're a BPA preferred customer, and we're one of 132 public utilities that get our power from Bonneville. And we feel very fortunate with that. There's 31 dams and 1 nuclear power plant that Bonneville manages that provide that roughly 7,000 megawatts of power to this 131 customers. And for Columbia River, our biggest bill every month is about $1.5 million for power. And we have roughly 20,000 meters that we serve, about 35,000 customers and 9 large companies. And we're different than PGE in the sense that PGE is an investor-owned utility, and they're not a preferred customer, so they don't get their power from Bonneville. They have to have their own cogen facilities. They have their own wind, their own dams, but of course they have 900,000 customers, so they're a little bit different than we are. But one of the things that has been a real concern in the Northwest has been we're running out of easy energy. Basically, you probably heard about some of the carbon legislation that's been passed in the Northwest. And basically what this means is that by those dates, and in Oregon it's 2040, that the privates have to be carbon free, which they can't use natural gas or coal or anyway. So that's really put pressure on particularly the privates like PGE to find other sources. So they've been buying up solar and wind and what other power they can find. And so over the last 10 years, we've seen these coal plants retired. And I'm not going to make a political statement about is it good or bad. That's not why I'm here. It's more to just to kind of bring to your attention that a lot of the supply that we've had in the past has been drying up. And we're going to have to replace it with anything. And we have to do that at a time when the world's went through electrification. And, there's, I think, what was it, about 15% of the cars in Oregon that were purchased this year were electric cars. And housing is starting to convert to electric. And, it's the preferred method to try and reduce our carbon footprint. So, but anyway, this map here kind of gives you an idea of where we get our power today. This is from the Northwest Power Conservation Council. But if you look at it, hydro is the big 47%, wind's 8%, solar is what, 2%, natural gas. Basically, there's about 47, probably 45% of those sources, natural gas, coal, are really up for being phased out over the next 15, 20 years. And that just puts more pressure on Bonneville and others to try and replace that. And of course, the big push has been for solar and for wind. And, PG just went out for an RFP for 670 megawatts of new power. And so they're hoping that these solar companies and wind will come and say, hey, we'll provide you this. So there's a real demand for renewable energy. The only problem is that the transmission system that Bonneville provides is really kind of built along the dams. And most of the wind and solar power is areas where the wind, it's over in Eastern Oregon, that you don't have the transmission. And the challenge is building transmission through Bonneville, through the federal government and through NEPA is really a slow process and takes several years. But then to add on top of that, there was a recent court case that was put on stay that really aimed at trying to take out the 4 lower Snake River dams. And you say, well, why should we care about that? But actually, they provide us with 15% of our power and 3,000 megawatts of CO2 free peaking capacity. And these dams also serve to provide transportation to move 10% of the nation's wheat export, and also provide support for 48,000 acres of irrigated farmland, up in Eastern Washington. So, if we lose those, we lose 15%. And the big question is, how do you replace it? And it's nice to be able to integrate solar and wind with hydro. And but anyway, that just puts more challenge on us. But at the end of the day, the good news is that we're a Bonneville customer. And what that means is that Bonneville has a responsibility to provide us with power. And that's a great thing because, they have the capacity of 30,000 employees and tremendous resources, and we're a preferred customer. So if we have a company that comes in and needs power, we just call them up and say, hey, we need your support, and they have a requirement to meet that need. The other thing that Bonneville does that's really, really important is provide transmission service. And I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to talk a little bit about that.
All right, so can you guys all hear me? I'm not the greatest speaking in a microphone, so bear with me here. So we'll talk a little bit about transmission and capacity. And there's really 2 components for somebody to be able to turn that light switch on. The primary component that Michael was talking about was generation. Everyone needs generation. The second problem or thing you need is capacity. And so BPA currently holds, about 15,000 miles of transmission in their grasp, which is roughly to 3/4 of all transmission in our region in the Pacific Northwest. So they span Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and a little bit of Montana. And why that's important is to kind of reflect on this last year in 2023. BPA has to form a cluster study, and they had 298 transmission service requests totaling, 24,000 megawatts of generation to load. And so, roughly our peak is about 104 megawatts. So you can see there's a lot of demand for electricity going on. And of that 24,000 megawatts, only 17,000 megawatts moved on to the next form of the studies. And of that, which was basically 222 transmission service requests, 2 of those moved on without any form of cost to prohibit them at 88 megawatts. And so to get that 17,000 megawatts of power to load basically came out to 14 new transmission projects at the tune of about $4 billion. So transmission capacity or constraint isn't just necessarily an issue in our service territory. It is a regional issue and honestly across the country issue with the push to electrify. There's a lot of demand with new technologies to go with high amounts of electricity. So it's not just an us issue. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And so now I'll focus a little bit on our service territory. So we're in that green. And we have West Oregon to our left, which is in the yellow, Class 9 PUD, which is red to our north, and then PGE serves, south of us. And they also have a little bit of a service territory in St. Helens, which is the Boise property, which is about 200 acres, which is their exclusive service territory inside of ours. All right, and then this next slide here, and I brought myself a laser pointer because it wouldn't really help if I didn't, but so right here is basically where the primary source of power comes into our service territory. This is Alston Substation, which is controlled by BPA. And then this yellow line that's down here towards the river is the 115, at which where we take all of our power from is off that 115 line. And then it continues on down, heading north to south, and we run across the river, and then we finally get to Scappoose. And then this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So up here is BPA's transmission line at 115, and then down here is PGE's, and it comes into St. Helens. And so as you'll notice, the majority of our industrial land that's in this area and then over here is kind of basically served by PGE's 115. And the capacity that's on this 115 and the capacity on this 115 is essentially the same. They offer redundancy for each other at St. Helens, which serves our entire service territory. And what we've known for a while, there was roughly 35 megawatts of capacity on our transmission system as it exists today. And recently we've had, in the last several months, requests of around 200 megawatts of additional load in our service territory. And so our understanding is roughly there's about 35 megawatts of capacity, and kind of what's that is up. Then it's going to essentially likely require a large or extensive transmission project. And so we've kind of known that we've had that 35 megawatts of capacity available for a while. So me and Michael have been, working extensively with BPA, trying to capture awareness of the amount of opportunity we have, especially with the expanding of the industrial area down here in Scappoose, and trying to get them to pay attention, and when they plant, to be able to add additional capacity.
And can I ask one question? What is your largest customer right now? About how many megawatts of power do they use?
I'm going to use general terms because I don't like to get into super specifics on that, but our largest customer is Dyno down the road next to our office, and they're somewhere in the ballpark around 10 megawatts roughly.
And then another one that might be around 5. Then after that, they're all pretty small.
All pretty small. So, we only have what I would consider 9 industrial customers, and that would be a range from 1 to roughly 10 megawatts in that ballpark. So, 35 megawatts, in and of itself is a large amount of power. We've had that capacity for a long time, 30 years, but given today's environment of being heavy electric users, that can go by pretty quick.
US Gypsum's 5, and they pretty big footprint right here.
What is the total usage here in Scappoose? Roughly, to kind of compare what.
Like the whole town of Scappoose, you're probably talking 15 average megawatts, maybe.
It's a loop system, so it's really all one system. And the average load's 55. We got 35 megawatts of surplus power right now. So that puts it in a little bit of perspective.
Scappoose uses roughly 15.
Probably right around there, give or take.
So you have 35 available. If someone today was just right there, you'd have the transmission to be able to get to them. 35.
That's our understanding. And, one thing that we are not is we're not the transmission owners. So we don't own, the PGE lines or the BPA lines. So anytime there's any kind of an added load, we have to take those requests to BPA, which is our contract holder for our power. They serve us, we're preference customers. And then, they give us kind of the, yes, you can serve it, or, hey, here's kind of what it's going to take. And so given that, our understanding is the capacity is pretty limited and it's, likely to be taken pretty soon is kind of our understanding. We've taken some steps to kind of understand what additional things can be done in our service territory. So we have submitted some line load interconnect requests in our service territory, one for the Scappoose area, one for the Rainier area, and there's one for the St. Helens area. And all three of them combined should give us some kind of direction as for kind of short-term solutions to maybe get some capacity along with what is our long-term.
So with like Scappoose, did you ask for a specific 50 megawatt, a number?
Yeah, I put in for 40 megawatts.
And then they'll come in and say exactly how much you have available.
Us-
And if you need 40, they'll look at ways of getting it there.
Yep.
Where would it come from? How would it get, and what it would cost and time frame and all that.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what we're hoping to get out of it. And so we should get those results back honestly in about 120 days.
For layman, like what, like the Betsy Johnson substation, what is that? What does that do? Is that power that comes in and goes there and then gets spread out from there? How does one of those work? How does that work? What is that?
A substation in and of itself typically has, so we have feeders out of it and they kind of branch out across our service territory and areas we deem that make sense for how we serve our capacity, just similar to like water systems, I'm assuming. They probably they're all interconnected some way in some points where they can have ties, but they're probably separate in some points, I'm guessing, your water system. I don't know.
Well,
But so we have, all substations, all of our substations typically have about 4 feeders out of them. And, we can, serve load out of there as much as capacity as we can get. But if we add load to, let's say Betsy Johnson, depending on how much it is, we have to get the approval from our transmission provider.
so we have 2 here in Scappoose, this one here, and then Betsy Johnson.
Actually have 3. So you've got a substation here, which is Dutch Canyon by the movie theater. You've got one, the Scappoose one that's right down the street. And then you got Betsy Johnson.
So all the power from Scappoose kind of resonates from there.
Yep.
It was from one of those.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
please forgive me for if I missed something. I'm just trying to keep up here. What is this information in service of? I'm trying to understand why I need to know this. What's the impact we're trying to be aware of? I'm sorry, but I'm just not following.
Take a shot at that, or you want to take a shot at it?
Why don't you go first?
We
No,
can tag team.
we can tag team.
Good question. The reason why it's important to you is because right now we have 3 different companies that are looking at building in this area. And if they do, they're going to need 180 watts of power, and we only have 35 available. So if they take all.
And I can't hear anything.
Okay, sorry, Doug. Here. So right now, there's a company that's looking at Armstrong. There's the Sprint project looking at the old Boise site, which is served by PGE. So they have 200 acres. We serve the rest. And then there's another company that we have another. Yeah, there's the old mill site. They're talking about reopening that. We had a company that was looking at the Cascades building. Actually, it was the Sprint project, but then they decided not to move forward with that one because there wasn't enough power. So really what we're really trying to help everybody understand is we got 35 megawatts of power, and however we use that shapes, it could make a difference. I mean, if 35 megawatts are used in St. Helens and somebody wants to come on Ed's property, then he doesn't have any power until we get a new transmission line, which we've been told is going to be 6 miles. Well, we don't really know it's certain because it's.
And I'll speak on that part. We don't necessarily know the answer to what it's going to be, but for those projects that I talked about, that cluster study from BPA, those 14 projects, the time frame for those to be completed, but you're talking the shortest time frame for one of those projects was 7 years. The longest time frame for one of those projects was 14. So these projects take a significant amount of time and resources to complete.
So you said the Sprint one is looking at Boise Cascade property, and it's PGE, but they would be taking your 35 megawatts of power?
Yep.
Not PG, I mean PG
Well,
transmission lines, but it would be
yeah,
your power.
It's so transmission systems are complicated, so they're all kind of interdependent and intermixed, right? That's how everyone gets your reliability. So PGE owns a transmission line and BPA owns a transmission line, they connect. And the sum availability of both of those transmission line because of them connecting is 35 megawatts. And how transmission systems work, it's a open access transmission system. So it's essentially first come, first serve. So you can't, discriminate against one company or another. You can only say, this is how much and how long.
So that PGE could use Bonneville Power? I thought we were preferred customer.
It's not necessarily Bonneville's power that they're using, it's their transmission capacity. And so while we're a preference customer to BPA's power, do not have preferential treatment for capacity.
How,
How are they separated?
Well, the short answer is they have a transmission group and a power group, and they're not they're two separate entities with under the same umbrella, and they treat power and transmission differently.
Who's they?
BPA.
So this relates to, just so you know, relate to your question, this relates to a letter
Good.
that came in today.
Yeah, okay,
that
yeah,
you
I
may not
haven't
have
had a
seen yet.
chance to get through this except for scan, so I'm just trying to get caught up.
Understood.
Thanks.
Mike, I have a question in regard to something that you said earlier. You said that BPA, if I heard you correctly, you said that BPA is required to provide the electricity. I would imagine that there's a criteria and a whole other a bunch of other things that happen though. So they may be required, but then where do you get placed in the list of everybody else that they're required to provide power to?
Want to answer that?
Yeah. So the where you get placed in that queue is if you have a company that's willing to invest in, let's say, build in our service territory, and they come in and say, hey, we want to go and we want to fund this project. They'll put them in a queue, and essentially as soon as they have the funding to move forward, things will start to happen. Now, the other category of how you can get into the queue is from a reliability standpoint. So if the capacity gets taken away, then BPA, at being a preference customer, has the obligation to serve our load growth. And so what that means is if they get to a point where there is a reliability issue and they can no longer meet our load growth, they'll be triggered to do some kind of a transmission upgrade in our service territory to meet those obligations that they have to serve.
So we go into a marketplace essentially for investors who may want to fund the opportunity. And so it's dependent upon the investor wanting to take advantage of the opportunity. Okay.
So basically, that was one of the things that was kind of exciting about the original Sprint proposal. They wanted to build 80 megawatts worth of power in St. Helens. They wanted to build 35 megawatts over here at Cascades. And the thing that was attractive about that is that it would kick us above that 35, which would have required PGE to upgrade that line. And it's not going to be cheap, but then that way the revenues they make from that added power would help pay for that new line. We went up to Northern Wasco about a month or so back, Brandon and I, to talk with their general manager and their staff. Northern Wasco is where Google is located, and they were our size about 10 years ago, and now they went from 55 megawatts to 300. It's because they got these data centers coming in. But when those data centers come in, they said how big a check you need to build the infrastructure to do that. And so one of the things that we're hoping is that, if we do get a large company, that they're willing to pay the freight. And the good news is there's not many pieces of property like Ed's out here that's 400 acres and ready to go. And so we're hoping, if we get a good company, that'll help pay for that cost. So
two questions then is PGE couldn't get power from somewhere else to go through that line and use PGE power and leave your power alone for other opportunities?
I mean, I suppose that they probably could, but would it be, becomes a asking of, is it cost effective for them to do so? And they do own that one transmission line, and, you know, you would conclude that they would want to use something that they also own as well, even though it does encumber, you know, Columbia River PUD.
Can they, if we have someone now that needs 20 megawatts, can they upgrade that line still? I mean, it will be using all the power and they could still upgrade it in a collaboration.
I would
Or-
say anything's possible. You know, likely it'll come down to a study, and that study will determine the best route to what needs to happen in our service territory to facilitate that kind of a growth if it's 20 megawatts.
You had said first come, first serve too. What determines, you know, we have all this property out here that's been ready to go. How is that not first? How is that not on the list first? Because there's not a building up and running and ready to go, and this other company has signed, you know, paperwork saying we're ready and they're willing to do it. I mean, how do you get on that list?
You get on that list by essentially saying, hey, we need this amount of power. You submit kind of a load request, and we take that back, and then we submit a line load interconnect request, at which point it's going to trigger studies and costs. And then somebody's got to hit those milestones as they show up, which they shouldn't tend to show up pretty quick. So, you know, within 30 days, there's asking for money for a line load interconnect request, and then you got to fund the next stage as you check a box, essentially. So it's kind of a commitment that you're going to take it, essentially.
So we've met pretty regularly with the Bonneville staff. I mean, they're the big dog in the room. They got 15,000 miles transmission, and they have a responsibility to serve all of us preferred customers. And so we brought all of their planners and the head of the transmission department to take a look at our area. We drove them and showed them all the beautiful industrial property in Scappoose. We showed them the Armstrong site. We showed them the waterfront in St. Helens. And actually even showed them the Boise site, because we wanted them to see the pressure that this area was experiencing in new growth, with the caveat that we didn't think we had enough power and that we needed to do something as quickly as possible. So as kind of a result of that meeting, Brandon's had a couple of significant meetings with the head transmission planners, and Armstrong requested a LLIR for the Armstrong site, and I think PGE did for the site of Boise. But we went forward and made an application for the Scappoose area because we felt it was critical to try and figure out what's cheapest, best, quickest way we can provide kind of power that would help this area develop. And so we're hoping from that study, which Brandon said will probably be done in early July, that we'll have a little bit of a sense of what a long-term plan looks like and what a short-term, if there is a short-term, maybe we can run a 115 line to kind of help appease the situation. But these are the best transmission planners, available. And so we're really very excited to see what kind of information we get back, because in our opinion, this is probably the most important issue that faces Columbia River PUD. And so
regarding that letter, Marissa, is too, if Sprint has till the end of the month, that if they exercise it, we're out of power. I mean, pretty soon. And even if they don't, we're still in need. We're still at that road where we need to look at this and work on something. Because someone else will. I mean, there's enough property, there's buildings, there's available, someone comes in, they're going to need power. Yes, we're going to need it. Is there anything that cities can do through urban renewal, through anything that the cities can do to help? I know it's usually we're waiting for a developer to build a building and the power company to supply it, but if there is things that cities can do to help, we'd love to listen and see what we can do. Councilor Holmes.
Yeah, so you had said the Sprint project would potentially need 190 megawatts total, or is that just kind of collective projections for new industry?
They kind of originally came out to this whole area. We're like, hey, we want about 130 megawatts of total capacity. And then once they found out what the capacity was in this whole region, they just went to that number. They settled on what was available.
And so then they would be responsible for paying for the additional infrastructure to go from the 35 available to what they fully need, the 180, 190?
If they wanted to go that direction. And our kind of understanding is they haven't wanted to do that.
PG would require that.
Okay. And then do they have to pay for their full capacity and then we get like that 35 back? No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, another question. So when Mr. Freeman comes up and talks, I have a question about what the potential capacity is that they need out at the Commerce Center to be viable out there. But I think one of the most important questions that affects this city, because it relates to economic development, is who decides who gets placed first? If I heard Brandon correctly earlier, we don't have an option on who it's first come, first serve. So maybe that is the answer. I don't know. But my concern is that the city of Scappoose is going to be crippled with economic development because we don't have the infrastructure to even be able to take on a business that wants to locate here. So this available land and everything else that we've been working on for so long and the importance that we put on it is essentially nothing without power. So I just want to place some reality in the room here that this is really important.
It's a huge.
That's why we came here tonight. We wanted to make sure you guys fully understood the hand we have and what we're trying to do to get ahead of it. But
Thank you very much. I mean, that we really appreciate being here, and I know that you're doing everything that you can. But if there's anything that we can do to help, please let us know, because economic development is one of our biggest priorities with the city. I don't need to tell you that, but for the record, just so that everybody understands that listens to this tomorrow or 5 years from now, what the concern is today.
Mike, you had mentioned if a company needs 10 megawatts, it's over the 9.9, you can go out on the open market to buy power, correct? But we can't because you don't have a way to get it here. I mean, if somebody opened up tomorrow and wanted 10, can it get here or does it need infrastructure built and going to take that time?
I'm going to answer that question just with a little bit of a picture here. But that's a more complicated question than it seems, because it depends on if you're on the open market procuring power, it depends on where you're procuring it and can you get it from that location to here. And there might be one of these transmission paths that would need upgrade to get it here. And so, one of the benefits of being a BPA customer, if a company were to come in at below that 9.9 megawatts, well, then it's kind of up for BPA to figure out how to get power to us. That part makes it a little bit easier being a preference customer versus if you're on the open market and let's say you're trying to get power from, Southern Oregon to here. Well, you got to get the transmission path from Southern Oregon to our spot. So it can be a little more complicated.
bottom line is that we would have availability of 9.9 at a preferred rate from Bonneville. It would be a tier 2 product as opposed to the top tier. But even then, it's well below the market.
The tiering just related to price.
Yeah.
I guess I still don't understand. If we're a preferred customer, BPA, how can PGE just take that power? Do they pay the same rate, or they got to pay more? How's it? Why being a preferred customer does us any good?
It only does us good from a generation side, from the procurement of power itself. The preference part doesn't benefit us when it comes to transmission rates.
PG has an obligation to allow us to use their lines, and if we had a 9.9 gigawatt load or a 5, like we did with Cascades, we would be able to serve it.
I'm going to flip this a little bit just so to kind of put this into context, right? So PGE has built this 115 line through our service territory that goes there to Boise. And if we happen to have a customer that utilized all of that capacity on their transmission line, they would have to give it to us. And therefore, then they would have, a sunken asset at the end of their transmission line that they own. So, it can kind of go both ways, given the open access of transmission.
I need to dumb this down for myself. So you have the generator and then you have the vehicle.
Yep.
Is that correct? We get the preference on the generator and then there's some obligations with the vehicle. Is
Yes.
that- Okay, thank you.
So does PG buy the power from you and they sell it to Sprint, or no, it just Sprint buys it straight from you, but it's going through their transmission?
Sprint, so where they're looking to site is on PGE property, so there would be just dealing with PG exclusively 100%. We wouldn't be involved at all. Yep.
And this LLIR might come back and say we have a little more than that. I mean, it will do a study and
Yeah, it'll come out, it'll show us what's left, given the snapshot of today.
so are they getting 30, they're getting everything or just 35? They came back at 40. Are they taking the extra 5 with it?
My understanding is they can only take the 35.
The LLIR will tell us exactly that and tell us where we need to get additional power.
Okay.
Right.
If you could just, are you done? Are we good there? Because I'd like maybe Ed to come up and say, and then if there's any
May I ask one more question?
questions we can.
Do we, how are we gonna get updates on this? Is there any plan on communication on this topic?
We'd be glad to come back. And probably in July, after we get the LLIRs back, we can tell you what our options are. And you asked earlier, appreciate the offer to help. And yes, we're going to need really to be united in moving forward because it affects the whole county. All the South County is going to really be in a tough situation. One of the questions that was asked of the city of St. Helens when we gave their presentation, they asked, well, what about the waterfront here? What if a hotel wants to come in? How are you going to serve that? And if they take all the power, it's going to be a good question.
But just residential doesn't take up a bunch of power. So I mean, we have 3 developments in coming or whatever. That doesn't take much.
And I can tell you exactly how much power they use.
Well, I would say from like a transmission perspective, they kind of see a residential load as kind of like noise on the system. They don't necessarily worry about that a whole lot.
And how much power can we get from natural gas? Are they a player at all in this area? No, they're talking about their line and doing some major upgrades and some big time investment in their area. Is that a possibility to look at as well? I know it's not you.
Yeah, from that's something that I have not explored from a generation perspective. One part that I would cause a little bit concern, just given the dynamics of the world we're kind of heading into from my 1,000-foot level, is it kind of looks like natural gas is, next on the chopping block of resources to be kind of taken off the shelf to be utilized just from like a carbon perspective.
There was a cogen plant built in Clark County. By PUD over there, they wanted to get ahead of the game, so they built a cogen natural gas plant. Because of some of the laws that passed in Washington State, they had to ramp it down. I mean, they can't even use all the power. So, that's the scary thing about natural gas, but who knows, maybe politics will change. Personally, I think natural gas in any case is an important peaking energy. I mean, because sometimes wind's not blowing and sun's not shining and you have these cold or hot situations, and that's when you really need that extra power. And natural gas and hydro are really the best at being that demand. I'm going to shut up so Ed can talk.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have Ed Freeman, Air Park Development here, and he'd like to speak.
Thank you. Is the mic on?
I'm sure Doug will let us know if he can't hear you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it, Mayor and City Council. I haven't met really any of you. I've been actually out here for 20 years working on this Columbia Commerce Center, and as you can tell, a letter from my partner, we've invested tens of millions of dollars to help create an economic opportunity for Columbia County and jobs for Scappoose specifically. Our big discussion as we went through the whole effort to bring that property into the urban growth boundary was, well, let's keep citizens here in Columbia County and in Scappoose instead of having to drive to Hillsborough or Portland and late getting back for baseball games for their children and this, why not work right here and make life better for everyone. And it's a noble effort. And the Sprint project that's being discussed for, it's down in St. Helens is part of that economic development. And so one regard, you can understand why St. Helens would like to have that project. At the same time, if they Sprint does decide to go forward on March 29th, they're going to preclude any job growth and industrial growth here in Scappoose for, sounds like 7 or 8 years before there's more power here, listening to what Brandon has analyzed. And these studies take a couple of years, and then it takes another couple years to raise the money and 6 years to build the infrastructure. So it's very disheartening after being at this for 20 years here in the effort to create this valuable asset for the city of Scappoose. I just learned of this on February 19th. Received a memo that Paul Vogel from the Columbia Economic Team sent out to Senator Merkley's office and copied Congressman Bonamici's office, the Columbia Board of Commissioners, City of St. Helens, Business Oregon, CET members, Columbia River PUD, and PGE. Kind of strange that no one from Scappoose received this memo. This was done, a month and a half ago on February 9th, and it addresses this issue. And I didn't learn of it for weeks later, and we're just learning about it now. And but on the second page of that memo, it says, regardless, if Project Sprint commits and makes a deposit on the 35 megawatts by March 29th, this is the PGE is committed to serve them. And if they sign this letter saying, yeah, we're going to do it, and it's a done deal, then the South Columbia area will have 0 estimated electrons for other businesses or housing growth for the next 5 to 6 year period. It's putting this city out of business and others also in South Columbia County if they take all the available electricity. And it seems, so that's my number one complaint here today is that there needs to be a better system. We should have all been in the loop about this and that this was coming down the road. And I think this memo is well intended to alert our federal partners that, hey, we're going to need some help and dollars to bring more power generation here to Columbia County. But kind of bothers me a little bit that we're going to sell all the available electricity to this Chinese company to build solar panels here when we've been here for 20 years creating this business park. So
Ed, may I ask you a question? Do you know where the 5 to 6 year period comes from?
Brandon.
Oh.
I think it comes from Brandon. Well, there are estimates in this, and I think it's probably more than 5 or 6 years.
I would think so. Depending on what's
Oh,
Yeah, that's what, like my.
that's, you could probably do it less if you're lucky and there's only a few miles and from a line and just some right of ways. I mean, you might get lucky, but a lot, look at all this construction, all these permit, everything you go through, it adds up.
Oh, yeah.
Time.
It just does not seem right that Scappoose in particular, my development here at Columbia Economic Commerce Center should be basically shut down when we have all this utilities and services put into the ground, and we're doing another nearly $3 million extension of Moore Road right now. We just started this week. So complete that loop around the airport. So it's a great asset, but what are we going to do? So I think I'm here to ask that the city do whatever they can to help connect with these other partners that are mentioned here as far as some long range planning, whether this project goes forward or not in St. Helens, but also, geez, what can we do immediately to
No, I mean, I first top thinking 35 megawatts. We've had it 5 or 6 years about that amount. You know, biggest customers are the one in Longview's 5 megawatts. Okay, I feels like you're okay, but as soon as there's 10, 20 megawatt companies now 35 that I don't think we really thought that was coming. But with all your acres and property, we should probably have seen that potential. Merkley is coming on April 6th for a town hall. I don't know yet if it's Scappoose but it's Columbia County. Might be a good topic there as well. I've always wondered now, Oregon State is really doing well with their nuclear power division at Oregon State University. I mean, what have the powers that be started talking more about other opportunities? It's the nuclear power today isn't like it was 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I'm hoping that the people, more than just us, this is happening to more than just us, that other people way above my pay grade are starting to get involved and start ask these questions too.
I mean, on nuclear power, I mean, I think that is a great thing to move forward, but currently with legislation in Oregon, you can't build nuclear power until there's a place to store its waste. So until something happens, legislatively in Oregon, nuclear can't happen. I mean, unless legislation is pushed to be changed, which that can happen, but.
Ed, what is your estimation on how much power? I mean, I'm probably
You
the ball here, but
and Joe kind of raised that question a roundabout way too. We should have maybe seen this coming, but I never really thought there would be a chip plant coming here to Scappoose. I figured it would be secondary, tertiary suppliers too, somebody like Intel coming out here. As we realized there was an enormous electrical load to do an actual chip plant. But we did have discussions with the PUD about that. And at that time, probably 10, 12 years ago, we were coming up with numbers like, well, maybe it's $14 million to run a line over there to be able to provide this electricity. And my answer was, well, if somebody wants to come here that needs that much electricity, $14 million is nothing for them. I did a 200-acre industrial park and sold half of it to Intel over in Hillsboro, and they'll just write the checks for this kind of thing. So I wasn't concerned about that, but to know that we can't even provide distribution companies or any kind of light manufacturing electricity now, that's a whole other. To answer your question, I don't know. I mean, if we had 15 megawatts, that would serve a number of businesses out there, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Right, manufacturing, yeah.
yeah, I mean, businesses range and, electrical load, and that's, one giant struggle, right? I mean, 35 megawatts is a lot of power, in perspective in our service territory. And so, I mean, from like a transmission perspective, it's hard for a transmission company to take action when there is that kind of capacity readily available to be utilized. It takes something like somebody to take it away for then there to become a need for it to be put on the to-do list, because there are other areas in the region that also need capacity. So
what were the two Cascade tissues combined for?
my understanding, combined at both what was there and here, probably about 10 megawatts.
Sorry, how much?
10.
But one of the things, I mean, we've had 35 megawatts for 20 years, and we haven't seen a lot of growth here. And thank God we had Ed and Joe come out and develop a new, really a relatively new industrial property. It's really probably the nicest one in the region. And let me tell you, when we showed it to the folks from BPA, they were stunned, and they could tell that there was a tremendous need. And so, but in the past, we always knew that we had 35 megawatts, and I think that the key is for our economic development folks to try and target companies that maybe take 5 or, a smaller load, because of this situation here, I think really kind of reminds us about how we need to be judicious about the little bit of power we have now. I mean, it's actually a lot, but anymore, there's so much automation and data centers, and so they're They're always looking, I think the company that's looking at Armstrong's a data center. They want 9.9 megawatts, a year, so.
And two, with the affordable housing and trying to live where you work, I keep talking about, we want to work where we live. 80% of our people leave and go over the hill or to Portland to work. And I want to change that. I want to keep some of them here. And if we don't have the businesses, we can't. It's just, we're going to have houses go in. It's going to be more people leaving town. And if that Sprint comes in, that's 800 jobs roughly or more, 12, 15, 1,600 more people too. So housing is a big concern too. But, so I think this is a pretty important item that we really need to learn more about.
One other question I have, and that has to do with this priority of, first one to raise their hand saying, I want this power, gets it. Sounds like it may take up to 2 years for this facility to get built if they decide to go forward. What happens if we have someone, or I decide to go out and build a 100,000 square foot spec warehouse and start getting users to come into that? And I mean, we could have that ready in 12 months. What, are they already taking the power, even though they're not going to actually be using it for 2 years?
I would implore you to try it.
I mean, what happens then? We can't.
They're obligated to supply you power. Build it, they have to supply the power. And if it's sitting there ready,
Even if
I don't know.
after March 29th and.
Yeah, that's what I don't know.
We're not the experts on that.
Yeah, don't,
Yeah.
Oh,
but my pay grade too.
do you think you'll have that answer?
I do have a question kind of on the same lines of the first come, first serve. So you've got the port out there, right? And so does an entity like a port authority get to lay any claim on future capacity needs for operational flexibility in the future? No, they couldn't say, hey, we're going to reserve 5 for special because we serve a lot of public and commercial.
No, I
needs,
mean,
no?
I mean, we even as the power provider are trying to ask the same question to PPA. Well, how can we reserve capacity for, our growth? Basically saying, well, first come, first serve, open access. So we're trying to figure out ways to accomplish that.
Is this by a law? The first come, first serve, so then your legal folks probably need to dig into that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it says to
Really.
answer that warehouse
Really.
question.
And this whole thing is confusing, like the Congress sort of asked, it's not the power, it's not, we need more nuclear or more gas powered. No, it's the transmission we're dealing with here. Mike is saying the EPA will provide the power, but it's the transmission.
Well, there's one thing, you can build one of those new nuclear power within this building and it would supply everybody around. It's not like it used to be.
They're about 50 megawatts, those modulars.
That's why we need an Oregon State Extension Engineering School here, right here,
Right?
engineering building those, and we would be the guinea pig and right here. Right. Jeanette, she's been waiting a little bit. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Well, I just wanted for us to keep in mind also that all the plans that OMIC has to expand, also the type of companies that they are wanting to recruit for innovation. We have to keep that in mind since that's already has been set as part as our council goals and the economic development for this community.
Especially when just somebody wants one. I mean, if we're out and we have 0 and the art comes back that we have none, it's, there's a incubator or these small manufacturers, somebody wants to start up. We have a Cascade Tissue sitting there ready to go. And if there's not even like 1 megawatt to offer, I mean, is that possibility if they take everything and are up and running?
Yeah, I will say, there's a little bit of a positive here. One thing that came to light in our meeting recently with BPA is that because Cascade Tissue closed so recently, that load that was there is still in our forecast and in theory is still encumbered on the transmission system. So what the Cascade Tissues was using at that site in Scappoose is technically still there.
We can reserve that. Sign up for it, get on the list, sign up, keep it. Scappoose.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah,
It's
I
on
mean,
our,
it-
it's on our loads. that we're gonna
yeah,
say.
I mean,
Counselor Jacobs?
So I have a disposition for action, and I appreciate you coming tonight and informing us of our current state and what the future impact could be. Given the fact that there is a decision that will be made by March 29th, and that's basically what, 10 days away. Is there something that you would like for us to do, consider, in, can we take some sort of action in advance of or March 29th? Or is this we're too late to the party and this is an inform and we'll just have to see how this all plays out?
I mean, just from me sitting here, I think you kind of have to see how it all plays out, quite honest.
I think that will determine, the LIR is in works, we'll know that. And then I think that will really maybe help determine routes to go. I mean, wait these 10 days. And then that will really determine something, and then the LIR will help us. But yes, I'd like to maybe get with St. Helens and get our other partners too, to make sure that, you know, maybe we're working together, because now if they find we have 5 megawatts, are they going to be fighting hard to get someone on that list ahead of us? You know, are we going to be going after that? Some kind of an agreement there. Again, you know, we've been sitting, I guess, waiting patiently to get people here, and that company comes in and 2 months later, they're guaranteed all the power ahead of all these other companies that have been looking at these properties. So I do think we have to at least wait till April, regroup.
I would just ask that maybe there's some communication with, like Mayor was saying, with St. Helens and the Columbia Economic Team. Keep us in the loop from the start on this. It's realize you want to see this economic development happen, but it impacts everyone, and we all would like to know sort of some of these consequences before it's too late. Right now, it's too late. We're learning about it.
We're all members of the Columbia Economic Team. We pay, and we're all part of that. So I think it would be nice that they come in, maybe, you know, report to make sure we're kind of working together, not against each other, trying to get every little megawatt available. Like to have maybe John Walsh come in and speak to you guys as well, if you guys are up for that sometime.
Well, I mean, City of St. Helens is gonna do what's best for the City of St. Helens. I mean, that's the reality of it, and we're gonna have to do the best thing for, you know, Scappoose. So, but in the middle there is, you know, the economics team and some of those other organizations that have, I won't call it neutral interest, but distributed interest amongst the different communities. And so they might be a more appropriate source to try to help us brainstorm and get some actionable items on these things.
Okay. Anything else? I really appreciate you guys coming out and keeping us surprised. Mike's doing a good job calling me all the time, updates, letting us know what's going on. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, and best of luck. You know, it's funny, it was, gosh, 3 years ago, I was
You do have an opening,
sitting over here,
and
and I
I think
really
I thought that's why
admire,
you came tonight.
but I do admire the progress you're making, and you're keeping at some bumps, but you're still keeping the city moving forward in a positive way, and you're making great progress. And sometimes until you do your goal setting, you don't realize how much you've accomplished. But I sit from afar and watch, and I appreciate your work and appreciate your discipline. And we're going to continue to work with you and do what we can to Columbia River. We got $1 million set aside just to try and deal with this transmission issue. So again, it's our number one issue, and we're not going to.
We appreciate you've been a great contributor to a lot of local nonprofits and everything, what you guys do and paying for the LLIR. I mean, you've done a really good job, so appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
glad to see Ed.
Ed, may I ask you something real quick? Do you have any folks on your team that research and kind of facilitate this type of, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but is there anybody on your team that research this more. I mean, we want to stay, I think we want to stay in communication with you, and we're open to hearing anything that you find out, because this does impact all of Scappoose.
Do you have any,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. On the electrical demand issue or our progress with marketing efforts?
Well, I think anything that has to do with the economic interest of Scappoose.
Okay.
we're Interested in hearing about. So
Yeah,
not
you
just
bet.
the power issue.
Sure, okay. We'll figure out a way to get a monthly update to you.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be monthly, just when there's any sort of significant update that you think, council will be interested in.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Lori does a good job of a plat update, that what's going on
Right,
there, the
right.
finals and stuff, but
Yeah.
we like to hear from you guys as well.
Okay. And it's nice to see Larry here. Larry, this project's been going on so long. I was working with Larry when he was here the first go around.
Years ago.
Yeah.
If you get any communications though, you'd like the council to get, all you gotta do is, text or email it to Susan and we'll make sure they get it.
Right, great. Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm on to the calendar.
Right.
Here we. Okay, this Thursday, noon, March 21st, EDC at noon, Parks and Rec at 6 PM. March 28th, Planning Commission at 7 PM. April 1, council work session, 6 PM, followed by city council meeting at 7 PM. April 9th, 50-year plan stakeholder advisory committee. I did miss April 6th as our all-town meeting. Merkley Town Hall, somewhere in Columbia County. April 11th, Planning Commission, 7 PM. Followed by April 15th, council work session at 6 PM, city council at 7 PM. April 18th, EDC at noon, Parks and Rec at 6 PM, and April 25th, Planning Commission at 7 PM. Larry, do you have any reports, Mr. Lehman, updates from the city manager?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I asked Chris here tonight, Lieutenant, to give us a little update on the unfortunate murders that occurred here in the last couple of days. If we can add anything, I just.
Yes, first of all, good afternoon or good evening, Mayor and councilors. Put most of the information on our social media page for the city. They had most of it there. The whole incident occurred. Also responded probably within, I believe it was 10 minutes where the subject was actually placed into custody. And then we were alerted and we activated the major crime team for Columbia County. It was a great effort between all our fellow partners through Columbia County Sheriff's Office, St. Helens Police Department also assisted too as well, and things such of that nature. And the scene processed well into probably the afternoon until March 11th during that time frame. So not getting too much about details. The suspect was arrested at the scene. It was after being cleared medically, was transported to Columbia County Jail. So, and that's pretty much I had the gist of it from there.
Just kind of repeat the whole process on your end, worked great with the different departments all coming together and working well together.
Good question. Yes, Mayor, it did. It did. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we had to go through this process, activate the major crimes team here within the city. And we're, myself is part of that, and we're continuing to do weekly briefs. And we're going to have a debriefing here hosted by the Scappoose Police Department this upcoming Wednesday. We'll come together and just talk about things we can improve and just better coordination in the future. So hopefully this won't happen again soon in our city.
Appreciate it. Anything else from either? Oh, I did have a question. They had asked me again, April 20th. Or you think you're still good at serving food at the Earth Day?
I will be there myself personally. Yes.
They did have another group as well that was offering to help with stuff too. So we might combination to give you guys some help too.
JJ, is JJ going to be there as Mother Nature again? Mother Earth? Yeah. I'll be there.
Mother Earth.
Yep. I'll be there. And just since you already on me, the last department update, after months of training, Jacob McFarland, Officer McFarland, is about to graduate from DPSST Academy in Salem on March 29th. And he's from St. Helens and great guy. And it's going to be glad to have him start his process and training. So great for this department.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Jacobs.
I'm going to pass tonight.
Thank you. Councilor LaFrance.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Santiago. Will I have you up there?
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will take this opportunity to provide some comment this evening. I'm going to go ahead and read some prepared comments because I want to make sure that they are concise and factual, since that is at the heart of the issue I will be addressing tonight. So I'd like to take the opportunity to address a communication that was sent last evening by Mr. St. Pierre to the members of City Council, our police department, the group that runs the Facebook Columbia County Transparency and Accountability, and the group's administrator, Miss Jennifer Massey. The letters supposedly from an employee of the Columbia County Sheriff's Office regarding this council's exploration of contracted public services with the Sheriff's Office. The letter that was sent to us is filled with speculation, misinformation, and veiled legal threats intended to intimidate members of this council. Mr. St. Pierre justifies his distribution of this information by saying, generally, we tend to do a FOIA request to substantiate information, but in this case, a FOIA would not be able to substantiate anything. Mr. St. Pierre and the rest of the members of the FAFODDS, I would like to remind you that there are many other tools available to substantiate information, and I'm going to take the opportunity to walk you through some of them so that you can employ these tools in the future. I will address the misinformation around the potential employment jeopardy of Scappoose police staff under a potential contracting arrangement with CCSO. Any Scappoose employee that would transfer over to the county would retain union protection and would be protected under current contract and future CBAs. Officers would be represented by the same fraternal order of police that they are currently represented under. And in fact, the terms of the collective bargaining agreement for CCSO employees can be found on the county's website. So, substantiation strategy number 1, please view the publicly available collective bargaining agreements to understand the extent of officer employment rights and causes for termination. Given the admin's close ties to policing services within the county, I'm actually quite surprised no one was able to offer information on the protections that are afforded to unionized officers. Substantiation strategy number 2, I would encourage Mr. St. Pierre to go back and review the council's discussion on this topic on February 5th. The city attorney has already debunked this notion that officers could easily be let go after 1 year. Second, it was extensively discussed that the level of service being explored would be 24/7 on-duty coverage. For the needs of Scappoose, that means 10 officers, 2 sergeants, and a lieutenant. If the sheriff doesn't have the sworn officers to fulfill the level of service, he doesn't get paid. Putting all of the Scappoose officers on a, I'm using quotes, graveyard jail shift would make it impossible for the sheriff to fulfill his contract. This letter alleges that the sheriff, quote, just wants the money that the city will give him, end quote, and has little interest in keeping Scappoose officers. Common sense tells you those two statements cannot be both true simultaneously. CCSO cannot get paid if they don't have officers available to perform the requirements of the contract. A new officer takes 12 to 18 months to get field ready, and the sheriff cannot start with a clean slate of officers. The members of FAFODDS should also be very aware of this and should have been able to debunk that information easily. Another aspect of this letter I would like to address are the personal attacks and veiled threats of legal action made toward members of this council. It's alleged that Council President Miller is the one pushing for the CCSO takeover. This is false. Both the mayor and myself made exploring 24/7 police coverage for this community a focus of our campaigns due to the feedback that we received from the community. It is no secret that our police department has struggled over the years to reach this level of service. Given CCSO's new success achieving this level of service in December, it made sense to consider this as one option to explore for achieving 24/7 coverage and being responsive to the concerns that were raised by our constituents. Given his background and history in law enforcement, Council President Miller has been asked to share his thoughts and questions for the different phases of discovery. He has not organized meetings with the sheriff or staff on his own. He has not sent out inquiries on his own or gathered information directly for this discovery process. This is actually one point you could substantiate through a FOIA request. Please feel free to spend the time and resources substantiating that point, but I guarantee you it will be consistent with the information I've just provided you. Further, I'd like to remind FAFODDS and whoever wrote this letter and felt the need to single out Council President Miller that he has advocated for a position with the Columbia County 911 Communication District that is consistent with Scappoose City Council Resolution 23-04 and the position of the cities of Vernonia and Columbia City and the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. So singling Council President Miller out on his position amounts to nothing more than a personal attack, which devolved into name calling in the letter. I would like to remind Mr. St. Pierre and the admins of the East Columbia County Transparency and Accountability page that this is in direct violation of their own rules. And lastly, I'll address the veiled legal threats promoted the legal threats that were promoted. The letter urges, presumably, the officers of the Scappoose Police Department to, quote, file suit against anyone and everyone and anyone, personally and professionally, that had anything to do with this, making this decision, end quote. Every person on this council has approached this inquiry with one primary research objective. What is the best way to achieve 24/7 police coverage for the taxpayers of our city? We've been incredibly transparent with staff and the public. The members of this council are doing the job that we've been elected to do, and I can assure you there is nothing illegal or improper happening. Our legal counsel has been engaged in this process every step of the way. I want to make it clear what is being offered in this letter is frankly terrible advice being echoed by FAFODDS, and that would only create undue financial burden to the officers that this letter aims to protect. So in conclusion, what was sent to council and posted on the Columbia County Transparency and Accountability page was nothing more than misinformation, threats, and frankly, negligent advice. This is an unfortunate pattern from this group. I think this is the third anonymous tip that we've received as council over the last year, all which have been debunked, 0 to 3 on that one. And so if I were the admins of this group, I would be increasingly concerned about my own credibility. However, if substantiating facts and information relating to this body remains a challenge for you, I'm happy to publicly help you fact check in the future. Please do join us for the next discussion of our phase 2 discovery in this inquiry, which will be April 1st, and it will be full of very factual information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President Miller.
I don't have much more to add. Kim's response to the Mr. St. Pierre's email and the post that has appeared on social media and then been recirculated by others. I think your response to it was very thorough, so I don't need to add any more, but thank you for thoroughly responding to that, Councilor Holmes.
Appreciate it. Don't really have anything to add tonight other than I just got the email today about the Senator Merkley Town Hall on April 6th, a location to be announced. I want to thank all the speakers tonight. Jack Massey with the County Chamber. We'll see her Saturday night. Looking forward to working with the search firm GMP on our next city manager. Thank you to Dave and Charlotte. Definitely thank you to PUD, Brandon, and Mike for coming out and providing that information. I think we all need to kind of learn more about that. I think that's all I have for tonight. Meeting adjourned.